have some serious crap.
I
Mm.
mean, that
Yo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, hopefully for all.
Alright. Hey Sue, how's it going?
Yo, Susan.
I printed them, yeah. I was gonna handwrite them, but, you know,
Looks like the right sign now.
Okay.
oh, so you're here for the declaration of a common driveway.
No.
No, we're not doing that because I screwed up. I had the wrong driveway on there. I haven't received that one yet.
Okay.
We're not doing that.
Okay. You're here for seasonal camping?
I am.
Where would you like to go camping?
I have my own, thanks.
So,
Although it's in the shop.
so the story on the seasonal camping is, there's a non-buildable lot on Lower Pratt Pond, and, they have septic and electric though. So they can't put a permanent trailer there, but they wanna know about like a fifth wheeler camper, what's involved in putting one there, and, you know, can they do it for the season, use it for the season, but then leave the camper unoccupied over the winter.
This lot has appeared multiple times in front of the planning board, trying to get the planning board to rescind the plan that was filed at the registry of deeds. And it's a good-sized lot, and I don't really know the reasons why the planning board denied it, but it's been denied 2 or 3 times, and it comes back every couple of years on this particular lot that I believe was.
So, I'm not quite following.
It's
So is this our purview then, or?
I don't know whose purview it is. All I know is that people have been buying and selling this lot, and they're trying to, that somebody's trying to get something
Up around
on it
90 grand
to
now,
get some
isn't
use
it?
out of it, even though it's a fairly substantial lot. It's got a beautiful view. It has, its access to it is no worse than most out there.
But the
Well,
deed
maybe-
won't
maybe
allow.
I-
Yes,
But
sewer and
when
electric.
when the plat or the plan came in front of the planning board, prior to my even being on the planning board, it was specifically listed as non-buildable.
If I could just, because I did a little looking up on it, and the non-buildable goes back to some other subdivision or some other rearrangement of land.
Something.
And somehow in the negotiations between a former owner or something like that,
Yeah.
and the planning board, they declared this lot would be non-buildable. But it's not non-buildable environmentally, because they got a legal septic on the thing.
Right, I mean, it's.
So, I guess it begs the question, okay, if I can't build a house there, can I go camping there? I don't think we have any law that says you can't pitch a tent on your property.
Yeah, well, I'm just concerned that, all of a sudden they build a little privy, and next they add
But they don't
on
need
to-
a privy.
They have a septic.
Well,
They got
I mean,
septic.
well, you need a little hut to go in, you don't just.
No, not if you put a fifth wheel camper
It's a
there.
fifth wheel.
Well, something like that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I can just see a little outhouse being built, and then they add on to the outhouse, and all of a sudden you've got a summer cottage, and then you've got a full-time home. I mean, I can just see a progression.
Is there any reason why there shouldn't be a full-time home?
No, there really isn't, other than some
Something about the
negotiations
road.
took place
It had nothing to do with the
prior to
road.
my time, between planning board and then the then subdivision, the developer of the property.
I think it's a rear lot.
Something along
It's like-
those
It's like a
lines.
rear lot of some kind, okay? But you can't make a good reason for not being able to build on it. But I guess the question that I saw at hand was, the potential buyer wants to put a camper there. It doesn't matter if it's a fifth wheel or if it's a different hookup. The camper's a camper to us.
Yeah,
Okay, and, can they put a camper there and use it seasonally, which I've seen done in a lot of towns on recreational lots. I've seen, they drill a well, they put the septic in, instead of building a house, they have a nice gravelled area, they landscape it, they park the fifth wheeler there for the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, is that violating the intent of what the planning board did?
Well, yeah, so before we go too much further into this, I think it's only right to bring this to the planning board tomorrow evening at our meeting. And, you know, or even before, like I'll email Dee tonight to
Yeah.
see if she can look up, you know,
Do you
the
want
reason-
this email?
Sure.
Yeah, I think she was involved in at least one of the discussions when it came back to the planning board.
Who?
Deidre Bailey. I mean, it's been in front of the planning board several times to try to get the plan rescinded, the agreement rescinded.
I know how to do it. Cause I did it. I literally took an unbuildable lot and made it buildable with the New Ipswich Planning Board.
When you do mention to Dee, would you ask about the master plan, when that's gonna be available? Because we're starting to get real close to.
the
budgets.
capital improvements.
The capital improvement,
Okay.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Capital improvement.
And that would be, Lou Alvarez would have the,
Yeah, I'm just
yeah,
asking that it be brought up to them.
The
Yeah.
other question I would ask too is, does that subdivision and planning board approval go back prior to zoning? And if it goes, when does it go back to?
I think it was 1996.
Okay, then it's not prior to zoning, okay. Cause I've seen stuff prior to zoning that the planning board had no authority to put those conditions on there. Because there was no zoning to match it up to, I mean, they just did it. And it mirrored every other town around, so everybody just went with it, okay.
It is interesting that they have a septic and a well. I mean, you were concerned about a privy being built, that there.
It's a legal septic too.
Oh, yeah,
Well, how-
I'm sure it
In
is.
electric.
The
yeah.
whole thing seems wacky, but I think Sean's right, it's probably nothing we can do at this
No, it's
meeting.
not our purview, we cannot overrule the planning board.
I guess the question is, you can't overrule. Well, the planning board makes rules, and the planning board does subdivisions, the planning board doesn't enforce,
That's true.
okay? You enforce.
mhm,
And the question is does, and I don't know the answer to this, okay? But if somebody's gonna put a camper on their property, do they need a building permit? I'll tell you right now, if you know, somebody had family coming from Timbuktu, and they came in a camper and spent a month in the summer in the driveway all hooked up,
Yeah, what do you do?
what do? You don't issue a building permit for it.
No, I mean,
But if it's a permanent residence, we do.
Huh?
If it's a permanent residence.
There's a permanent residence, so I guess the question is,
Yeah.
can you even issue a permit for,
oh yeah, I mean, things like that get licensed all the time. But we don't have anything
You can't,
in place to make that process happen.
you
mhm.
can't do anything you're not authorized to do, that's the problem.
Correct.
So is the authorization there? I have no idea.
I guess the biggest question is, can they leave it there year round, even if they're not, you know, but just use it in the season?
That kind of makes it permanent. And that'd probably be.
I could take you for a ride down Going Road, and if you're worried about that camper, you ought to be worried about a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if it's left year round, that becomes a permanent residence. I mean, I've seen houses on stilts, might as well have a house on wheels.
From a tax point of view, if you leave it there year round and maintain plates, active registration, there's no property tax on it. If you don't maintain current registration, then it becomes taxed like a structure.
Hmm.
Okay, I got that right, okay. For what that's worth,
Alright,
anyway.
with all that being said, move on to the next, so we have employee handbook edits review on here again. And I think I just saw an email with the attachment of was that the edited version, like with our edits in it?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't have a chance to look over it, but
I read
So if we-
it really quick. I guess the only issues that I have are the ones I've raised before. There's no discussion here of where does an elected official fall within the handbook? Is he a volunteer, or he or she a volunteer, or are they not subject to it?
I think for most part, they're not subject to it, they're not employees. You're calling it an employee handbook,
Yes.
so it shouldn't even include volunteers. You should have something separate for that.
Well,
Okay,
okay,
and then,
that was.
well, Roger had a, you had, do you have
We
a
have
point?
separate thing for volunteers, separate for regular employees, and separate for, I think, part-time employees. We have separate things already.
Yeah, but the question was for elected officials.
Yeah, we
So you
have
didn't know where they
elected-
felt,
Elected
yeah.
official, separate thing. I have in my payroll book, I have separate things for separate whatever it is, so we already have.
Is that like
What is that?
policies or,
Yeah, they're like handbooks, but they're not employee handbooks because one might say for elected officials and volunteers or something, and then there's another one that says for employees and, you know, so there is already, and in fact, that might have been done many years ago and nobody, maybe.
I helped
think-
put together a code of ethics that covers elected officials, it must be 25 years ago.
Well, that might
Seemed
be
like that
something.
long anyway.
so it sounds like it's a different like a different set
Yeah,
of,
but
Why
I
isn't
have
that
the-
handed to us when we're sworn in?
Hmm?
Why isn't that handed to us when we're sworn in?
It's like so many other documents that kind of get lost in the mist of time.
I found a closet full of books that don't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we should take a look at those, see if they should be kept separate or incorporated into the employee handbook as a single document. This covers, this is our umbrella
But
policy.
there's a legal distinction between an elected official and an employee,
I know.
and it's huge.
now, Roger, those documents, those are different than what you had given me, like those hire packets, right? Those examples of hire packets?
Yeah, if they're having to go on the payroll, that's the employee one, but I have one for regular full-time employees, and then I have one for like casual, part-time employees stuff. You got stuff in there like, holiday pays and vacation pay stuff that don't apply to the part-timers, so there is a separate for that.
Yeah, and that wasn't a part of those packets, right?
Well.
Or are you speaking about those, like the hire packets for the part-time and the full-time?
I might have just given you the one for the ones that were hiring people on payroll, I'm not sure.
How substantial are the documents? I mean, 2 or 3 pages, or are they 10 and 20 pages?
The employee manual is the biggest one, and then the other ones, I don't remember how many pages, but the one for the part-timers isn't very much.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it might be 8 pages, I don't know, something like that.
Could you have those for us? And you don't have to pull them up now,
Well-
that's fine. Well, no, cause we're not gonna finish this
Okay,
topic
go ahead.
anyways. Oop. I wanted to keep them here for the rest of the discussion.
You got a hammer and nail.
You gotta give a holler.
Hold on!
Run, send him back in.
You know, I'm just thinking that, if we have 2 conflicting documents, you know, we want to, expunge one.
Well, that's what, it's two different things, like an employee is different than
Yeah,
an
but he's-
elected
he's
official.
also- Yeah, but he's
Yeah.
also talked about part-timers, and we discussed part-timers in our employee handbook.
Mm, yeah,
Well, I think the only thing we have is, it says part-time employees are not eligible for paid benefits.
Yeah, but, and
Is there anything
he's
else?
talking about an 8-page document versus, a paragraph.
Right,
That
but
leaves
do
a lot
we
of-
address part-timers anywhere else?
No, but I
When we
mean, that
review
leaves a
that.
lot of room for potential conflicts.
Oh, so you're just saying we should review that?
It needs to be looked at.
Under,
what's
I'm
that?
not- I'm not saying make
I
a,
have the books printed.
No, oh, I'm not gonna go through that tonight anyways.
no, no.
what's that?
She's printing it off right now. If
Oh.
I need everybody to remain seated and stop running around the building. We'll be here all night.
Yeah, I'm just going
Yeah.
through the email and seeing if the changes.
Yeah, you don't have to, I'm not,
No, well, I'm
Yeah.
just checking because she just
I didn't
sent
have a
it.
chance to,
You wanna
yeah.
defer this to the
And
next
I've
meeting?
seen,
Yes.
Because the meeting after that, you're gonna get pile of budgets.
Yep, with that being said, I most likely will not be here next week. But there's the off chance that I will. States, it's the States tournament, next Tuesday. They start at 8 o'clock in the morning, but
So you hope you're not here next.
no, well, I don't know how it all goes, so it's a,
Well, no, but
Yeah.
if things go good, you won't be here.
I guess, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many, like, if he like finishes his round and then that's it, or, you know what I mean, like, I don't know exactly the format of the whole thing,
Oh,
so.
okay, okay.
Yeah, cause I think it's,
Because usually the longer you go, the further you're getting into this thing, so
yeah,
I
yeah,
just thought that was, it looked like a good sign.
yeah, no, it is a good sign, but
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
caddying for him?
No, not allowed to, no. So if you gentlemen wanna go over that, like, go over it yourselves next week, that's fine to put it
Yeah,
on
and
next
then you'll
week.
yell at us the week after. What you
No,
guys
no,
do?
no, no, no yelling at it after the fact.
Alright,
I think it's relatively simple.
I didn't see too much that was
Yeah.
problematic in there.
okay,
Little grammar here and there, and that's it.
but if you guys get into, like, it seems like it's gonna turn into more
Yeah.
with, what Roger brings, and it should be
Well,
a
I
bigger
think that's a
discussion.
total different discussion. You get one thing done at a time.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. And if there's a part-time employee handbook, then then when we have time, we look at that. Is that how it should
yeah,
go?
no, that makes sense. And if we can combine them, then we can combine them,
Yeah,
if we
I
can't,
just-
we
I just
can't.
wanna see what we're dealing with.
Cause I do agree, like, it'd be nice to have some of these things together so
cohesion.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
like, as people swap out, you know, it's not this massive learning curve every single time. Alright, on to the next, so that'll be for, next week discussion, Sue.
A couple of things coming up. I didn't make copies for everybody. If people want copies, I can email them to you. I mean, so the next item up is something new. It's something that has been coming for the last 15 years at us. We have an abatement case that's reached the level of PSNH versus the town of North Dorchester Board of Assessors. And it's over the transmission line value, not the distribution value, but the value of all these high transmission poles going through here. And it looks like, from the best I can tell, it's everybody along this line. It's not just us.
Yeah,
I did look at it from a point of view of, I'm very familiar with where I used to work, of the line that went from Hillsborough to Keene, which is like it's a line that gets used during high usage times. It's, you know, it's like a peak load line. Comes out of Jackman Hydro, it's a hydro station. And some of the towns up there I checked with, nope, they left it alone. We all got the same assessor that we hired. So we didn't make a lot of sense out of that. So anyway, I did get this phone call from Christopher Bolt, who's an attorney with DTC Lawyers, and telling me that I just won the lottery, so to speak, and I was named and the board was named in a lawsuit, okay? So anyway, we told them to accept service for us. We don't want the sheriff running around trying to find a selectman on a Saturday night or handing it to the clerk, so he will accept service. It's a whole consortium of towns again, so the cost should be, it should be nothing as the size of the last one, okay?
yeah,
And quite frankly, out of the 6 or 8 years that have been contested in the past, we won all but one.
okay.
I mean, it's.
So, and that
it just,
one-
it just keeps coming, huh?
That one was just last year that we had to.
It was that
settle,
last year we
yeah,
had that biggie, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And I believe we assessed that transmission line at around $7 or $7.5 million, okay? And there's a lot of money been put into that line in the last couple of years. They're replacing the structures with bigger structures. So I just want you to know about it.
well, that almost sounds low, given the amount of money they were looking to charge in order to run like phase 3 out to the, or 3-phase out to the, other end of town.
Yes.
Yeah, so 7.5 million sounds very inexpensive. It seems like it should be a lot more. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
so, it's
Phase
under
three,
control,
I
we have
was-
to, put together some, material to send to the attorneys, all the towns, and we're in with a group of towns, so
Mhm.
when the guy makes a response, he makes it on behalf of the whole group, and we just slice up the bill into little pieces, so
Okay.
I don't see this thing immediately costing us anything great, but I just wanted you to know about it.
Okay.
Just a note here, the way of disclosure, about 15 years ago, I was a subcontractor to PSNH, and I worked on most of that transmission line all the way across. So, but that was 15 years ago, so I don't think it's a real huge conflict of interest.
Mhm.
My name appears on a lot of the plans
Okay.
that they have of the transmission lines and the substations.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
Are they still paying you?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not still
You're
paying
good.
it, and it's actually going to another board.
Yep,
So, but it's important that the selectmen know about it,
yep.
okay?
Well, if a
And
plan
be-
shows up with my name on it. And my stamp.
In your stamp. Okay.
Bert, what were you doing?
Okay.
You electricity for your house.
You all had questions on Primex values,
Yes.
okay? And I have had some conversations, and I just want to talk about insurance in general, especially when you're self-insured or you're part of a group.
Okay, stop right there, Jim. What is the definition of self-insured? And the reason I'm asking this is because that email you sent, it quoted a number for a $2 million building, or an $1.8 million building, that was lower than my house insurance.
That's correct, and you can't compare the two.
Well,
Okay,
what does
let me just-
self-insured actually mean to us?
Okay, we're part of a consortium.
Okay.
They have, I believe the term is reinsurance, where they will go out to Lloyd's of London or something like that, and they will have like disaster insurance in case something bad, really affected a lot of their people. I can have them come up and explain it.
This is still through Primex?
This is Primex. Primex gives you dividends back, and they do it frequently. Whenever you get insurance, you're part of a pool. The pool could be everybody in town, or everybody in the state, or it could be all kinds of things.
Mhm.
In this case, you're in a pool with, I believe, counties and towns and cities. They have losses, they have money coming in, they're solvent. I mean, I can't explain it better now without having them come up here. And what does happen from time to time is you'll get a dividend back. Very often it comes back in the form of a premium reduction the ensuing year. It works for unemployment compensation, it works for workers' comp, and it works for property and liability. Now, to get back to Bert's statement about how can you insure something for $1,100 to $1,200 is $138 million. Well, I have found out the $138 million includes the contents. So it's really,
And didn't
it's really I may have this right, it's got like, it wasn't 138 million, it was, how much was it? 1.8.
the building two that we're
1.8.
talking about is 1.8 million.
Okay, yeah. 1.8 million, of which they've allocated 500,000 for contents. That's a little bit comparable. You have a house, they have something for contents. But if you think it should be $11,000 or $12,000, your total bill is 42, That's an outrageous percentage compared that building to everything else that's being insured. So your whole insurance bill is low
Mhm.
and you're covered. But it's because you're part of a situation that's totally different. And, I mean, they're more than willing to come out and explain it. Let's go over to the police cruiser, the common car, the rent-a-wreck we have back here, okay? That's a Ford Interceptor. Oh, you got a Ford Interceptor Cruiser, it doesn't matter if it's painted pink and it's a common car, if it's black and white or some other color. They're all $437 a year, thank you, that's it. What they show as the value on the tables they have is the cost to acquire in the case of a vehicle or a piece of equipment. And in the case of a building, which goes back before anybody knew what the cost was, they come up with a replacement cost to build the building all brand new and build it proper. And they throw that number in there. That doesn't mean they're gonna give you that if it burns down, you're gonna get what you got. But, so I mean, that's the best way I can explain it, but the other piece I'd like to go somewhere with this, okay? A year or so ago, we changed health insurance providers, and we saved some money. Or did we? And the reason I say, or did we, is because that may have taken us out of a recent distribution from the Municipal Association Health Trust, which kind of does the same thing. When it gets too much money in it, it gives the money back to the cities and towns that are its members and to every person who paid into it. I was part of their health trust as a retiree, okay, for dental. I also had dental from when I worked for another company, so I had 2 dental policies, which kind of came in handy. I didn't have to pay much. And one was free and one I paid for, and I paid for the one through the Municipal Association. And I got a small piece back, because dental isn't much, but, so that's something I think should be considered, and I think it might make sense to sit down with the health trust. Since you're still a member of it, you're doing dental with it. And take a look and see just how much you saved, whether it was worth it, and compared to what you're getting.
Yeah.
So with the health trust, would that be a part of a breakdown that we would have gotten, like, from our insurance agency? Like, listing that? I have to go back and look at
I don't
the
know what
documents
I
that we
have no
got
idea
last
what you
year,
got.
but, yeah.
I'm just asking, I'm really asking a question. I don't know if that was a factor. I have
What?
no idea.
If I remember when we made that change, I was on the board at the time, and the differential was only a few $100s per person. And we were trying to compare apples to apples, and the way they had, of the 4 or 5 providers, the way they had it set up, it was very difficult to tell which service had the most value for the, or bang for the buck, if you will, because each service had different limits and different things that were covered, and you really couldn't compare what was, a better deal, so to speak. Even though some of them were a little pricier, some of them were a little less, we went with, I think, somewhere where we thought the employees would get the best service for what we knew of the employees. We don't really know their medical conditions or what they need for drugs or physician care, doctor care, and so forth. So we tried to best guess it.
Mhm.
And we got a lot of complaints afterwards. A lot of people had to change doctors, a few people then had to pay for their prescription drugs, I mean, it wasn't good for the employees to keep making the changes.
Yeah,
So-
and then last year, we went and made a change again.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're even more.
So it's like ratchet, but, so your change was from Health Trust to a different
Yeah,
Okay, so that, it was 2 years ago that the health trust was dropped then.
Yeah, and I believe currently the health insurance goes through a private salesperson,
Mhm.
okay? But it does pick up Anthem Blue Cross
Mhm.
in some form. The health trust, which is the front end on this thing, also uses Anthem Blue Cross and some others, okay? And you're absolutely right. I did it many years ago. I did a detailed analysis of this, okay? And I was headed the same way until I discovered that, and one of the things I found I could get from Health Trust was, if I went to an HMO, could I save money? And how would it affect the employees? And they were able to come back and tell me how the employees are using the insurance.
Yeah.
They said if you were on the HMO, virtually nobody would have had any difference because it's all the same people. So we switched, and then what we did was, the savings were huge. Because they were coming off a traditional indemnity plan, so the savings were huge, so, we did that. And then we took the savings and we split it between the employees and the town, and the employees got life insurance. And they got, long-term care, after like 6 or 8 weeks, something would kick in, like, I don't know, it wasn't an Aflac, but it was something.
Disability of some sort.
So, and then the town pocketed the rest, okay? And everybody walked away happy, but it's impossible to compare these things directly, I agree with you. Because the nuances are so subtle, but they're there.
So, sounds like we need a night of insurance discussions.
Yeah,
So I wonder if we,
talked about this earlier this year, about going over this health. plan
yeah,
for
so the plan
employees.
was to have that private insurance agent, like,
Yeah.
come in and explain,
Yeah.
like, who we had linked up with after
Whatever
leaving health.
happened?
Well, Scott, and then,
Yeah,
we switched and,
I agree we need to do it. I'm just wondering if we're trying to put out too many forest fires at once.
we gotta be careful with that because we run out of time.
Mhm.
And we can't necessarily analyze something correct. What I would like to do is have somebody from Primex come up and give you kind of the nickel tour of how it works. I'm not suggesting you leave
Yeah.
that because it'll cost you more money no matter what you do.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we need to do it, it's just timing. Because we have budget season coming up, we have a number of items we keep working on, but never quite seem to be getting there
Mhm.
on. I'd like to put a few of these things to bed.
yeah,
Well, the key is having enough money in the budget to do what you wanna do. Once you have that, then you can go left or right or straight ahead, whatever works good for you.
mhm.
Because when you budget money for healthcare for employees, you don't budget it for a particular vendor, you budget for the healthcare.
So I
Then
think,
you make a choice.
and I believe that what we had chosen last, like, we have to review it this year again anyways.
Because we'll have to sign on
Correct. So if we put that at the
Have
end
you-
of budgets,
it. Have you had feedback heard any feedback from the employees?
yeah, what we did last year was terrible.
And they're not happy right
So I
now.
guess and the year before was terrible. So I don't know if we should get some feedback from the employee, like if
It would
they
be
like the health
helpful.
trust
Would be
better.
helpful, because we're not using it on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Well, question is, where do you go for help or professional advice on what is the best insurance for our situation on average? Because every employee is gonna have a different requirement.
Sure.
well, even like, so past this point this year, like, in what direction we choose to go in, whether it be go back into the health trust pool or stick with this insurance, I think it's keeping the same thing for multiple years, as long as it's within a threshold of expense, and making that known to the employees, and something that will go down to boards after us, you know, just explaining, you cannot just change every year willy-nilly, cause there are people that are, you know, impacted by this.
And that's the question, they may not have been happy when it changed, but is it livable now? Because if it's livable, any change you do is gonna make somebody unhappy, am I right?
I think some input that I got back was they had to change primary care physicians,
So now if they have to do that again,
the pharmaceutical stuff went up, you know, like from being $500 a year, it's gonna end up costing them $3,500 for the
Yeah,
year, and
It was,
so,
it didn't really matter what you did, you could not win,
mhm.
because you were gonna aggravate somebody.
But if you keep the same program, and granted, when we reviewed it, it was pitched that we weren't gonna, like, they were discontinuing that specific plan, but there was something that was 99.9% it, but it just cost a little bit more, like, so it came under a new name the next year. And I can't remember the dollar amounts, you know, that,
Well, I mean, if you feel like we need to do it sooner rather than later,
well, no, later, I think later's fine, like, so
Well, I
after
mean,
we get
You can't
through,
do it right now, cause you're not gonna know the rates till the latter part of October.
mhm,
So you'd be probably talking to people in November about what the rates are
yeah.
and what the different plans are, but.
And that's kind of where I was going was, our last meeting in November is the 29th, or the, no, 30th,
The
Yeah.
last meeting in October?
November
Oh.
is the 30th, so I don't know, that's pretty far out and gives us time to coordinate getting those people in here, cause sometimes they
Well, if
need,
you wanna shoot that as a target date, I'll go after it.
yeah,
We'll just space them apart by at least 5 minutes.
cause we do need to, make a decision on the insurance type stuff before the beginning of the new year, to give a direction, so.
I'm just wondering how many people we'd be bringing in, and, you know, from what I know of insurance salesmen, they can talk for hours.
Well, so I'm thinking 3. Primex to understand it better. We're not making a decision whether or not
I
to leave them.
wouldn't
We're
bring
just,
Primex in
No.
the same time as the health, it has nothing to do with it.
okay.
The
so
only common denominator is the health trust gives you money back, and Primex gives you money back because of the type of pools they are, but you're covering a whole different subject.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
health trust is, they're both important, but the health trust has a bearing on employee morale and stuff like that, so that becomes a little bit different.
So I guess with the Primex
Yeah, Primex we could bring in.
discussion, would you like to have them come in, like to
I
explain?
would, I
Because the
just-
numbers that you recall, and then what,
Yeah, well, I
You know,
know
Jim has
why
gotten-
the numbers were presented the way they were, and
Mhm.
they were extremely misleading during the meeting that I attended. And, you know, the thing Jim failed to mention, is that line item on the town budget, because I looked it up, it also covers personnel liabilities. It's not just buildings, but it's also liability.
Oh, yes.
And that is a bigger part than the building insurance itself.
mhm,
Oh, yeah, we can get in more trouble with each other and ourselves than we.
Right, so, I mean, so the whole insurance concept is like, you know, one big ball, and the buildings are only just a piece of it.
So I guess,
So you, separating it, I'm not sure is even
I've tried,
possible.
years ago, we tried, where I worked, we tried going out to private insurance,
No, yeah,
and what we found was, it's probably 20 years more ago, you'd get, I forget it was a company, I think it was called Great American, but I'm not sure. You know, they would target certain cities,
Mhm.
they would know what the losses were and stuff like that, so they'd target certain cities like Keene or someplace like that, and they'd come in with a low ball price.
yeah.
So everybody, hey, this is great, so everybody switches, okay? Well, you don't get anything back, number one. Number two, 3 years later, the thing's out through the roof.
yeah,
And there was a case back in the, I think it was in the 1980s, which is why we have these companies.
how's it going, Eric?
And the reason is towns couldn't get insurance. Parks were closing. Rec departments were shutting down. They couldn't get liability insurance.
Mhm,
And so towns and cities banded together, and in New Hampshire, you wound up with Primex and you wound up with the health trust as a result of it. And they've proven to be pretty effective. Now, one thing about like health would be, how many towns use the health trust and how many towns don't? And what are their reasons? I mean, we could do a grand study on this one,
Mm.
but I think the health trust is huge. Okay, they got, they don't, I don't know how many people they lose each year, or how many they gain, or, but I'm sure their rep could tell you that.
So do you wanna schedule a night of your choosing to have
Right.
Primex come in?
Yeah, I'd like to have Primex come in, we're gonna
Yeah.
do a budget for them, but I mean, I think it's important because nobody's been on the board for some huge amount of years, like 10 or 20.
Mhm.
And why not meet the people that cover all that insurance and get to ask questions? So I don't think it's a budget item as much as I think it's an information.
Yep,
Yeah, that's
alright,
it.
so I'll
So
leave
let
that,
me do that.
yeah, I'll leave that to you. And then if we could have the health trust and our current, insurance agent come in on the 30th of November.
For the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think, yeah, we'll try and get that lined up this week, so we
Yeah.
got a good jump on it.
which
Yeah.
one, the,
For
for health
both-
trust,
both-
yeah,
all of-
both,
all
yeah.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, and before we get off that topic, Jason did have a question on that schedule of exposures about the building square footages.
Yeah,
Those values are way off, on at least two buildings.
Yeah.
Um,
Just looking at it, I mean, I
Yeah.
thought after the meeting today, I'm gonna go pace it. I think a pacing gives you a pretty good idea.
Yeah. But
In
anyway,
any case.
but I mean, like you've been in building, the old, schoolhouse, right? I think you took a tour of that at one point.
Yeah.
They've got that listed at 4,800 square feet. The building itself, the footprint is 40 by 60 with 60.
Oh, you mean the town hall?
The old town hall, excuse me, whatever it is up there. And there's no second floor to it, except for that little choir loft in the back. in the front.
Balcony, yeah.
But, you know, I asked that exact question a few years ago, and the answer was, our insurance rates on these buildings are so low, it's not worth throwing the rock at them.
But
And
that's not the right
Judging
answer.
from what I've heard, it may be, like you said, how many fires do we wanna fight?
Well, that's not quite the right answer, okay? If there's something wrong in the data, okay, so they correct the data, the difference turns out to be $1.11 in the course of the year, that's okay, but at least when you look at the data, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think, you know, all those buildings, pretty much all of them should be checked for their square footage, if we're really going to go and do that.
It's really,
exercise.
it would be a very simple job.
Well, they send somebody around to actually, they pay somebody to go out and view all the buildings and look at them and bring back the information to them.
Well-
So I think what we should do is, if you wanna question the square footage, for example, okay? That's a good topic to bring up, and I can let them know ahead of time that that's gonna be a
Well,
question.
I mean, if push comes to shove, I've got a couple 200-foot tape
I was gonna
measures,
say, I'll
and
bet.
we'll just,
So do I, I get one of these.
and he can hold one end.
I will, as long as it's the smart end, cause I don't trust you.
You can always use the smart end. I prefer the dumb end,
No, it's,
but yeah.
but in the meantime, no matter what, it's not gonna make much difference in your tax rate.
Yeah.
Right.
And just as an add-on, you know, for buildings in particular, at some point, we're gonna be discussing the rental agreement.
Mhm.
It would be nice to know the exact square footage that we're dealing with.
yeah, yep, oh,
Well, because you're renting by square foot, right?
By the square foot, well, no, it's a lump sum, that's how.
Well, no, but usually when you rent, there's a square footage
Right,
associated.
right.
I use that to break it down,
Okay.
alright.
Okay, so. Okay. Bert, you raised a question about discussion, allowable communications between meetings,
Yeah,
and you sent me an email
I
on it.
did.
You wanna,
just
Well-
on the heels of, like, when I asked for
Yeah,
the discussion to
The
stop.
problem is you're allowed to pass information around, but you're not allowed to have a conversation on via email.
Yeah,
Now, no, I've talked to Steve Buckley about this a couple of times, and yeah, you're absolutely correct. The problem is, it's very easy to get sucked into a conversation,
mhm,
as Jason and I proved. I did find a potential workaround for that. It's clumsy, but it is doable.
mhm,
What you do is you open what they call a permanent meeting. Basically, in order to open a meeting, you have to have a quorum, so we'd have to meet here. After we adjourn our regular meeting, we open meeting number 2 permanently and state that we are going to open a selectmen's forum on the internet. Now, we're in person at the time we open this meeting. We never close the meeting. And the forum that you can open on the internet or through a blog or whatever system you want is just permanently available for us to go back and forth, but it's also available transparent to the public. The public can look at it at any time. And you probably have, now, the chairman, with his authority, he can make the decision that he will not recognize anybody outside the Board of Selectmen and the administrator. In other words, there'll be no public input to this meeting. You can do that right now if you want. You don't have to recognize anybody
mhm,
at a regular meeting.
yep,
But you can also do it on a public forum or a selectmen's forum. And this meeting just goes on and on and on until the selectmen decide that it isn't working, or we have a new Board of Selectmen and they decide to shut it down.
That is interesting.
But you have to start it with a in-person quorum. And then it's like walking out to utilize the facilities or walking out to get a drink of water. Well, we all walk out together and we go online. But it has to be transparent to
Have
the
you
public.
run this by anybody?
I did. Actually ran it by Benty the other night,
Well,
but it has to be legally checked. I know it violates the spirit of the law, but it beats the letter of the law.
And you need to maintain minutes, because that's.
Mm,
well, no,
That's-
it'd be all written,
Everything on
Yeah.
this forum is written, and it has to be available to the public for them to read at any point. So it is fully transparent.
mhm,
But it might be clumsy to set it up, and it might not serve the purpose.
I could see where it could get out of control.
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
Particularly if you had hostile selectmen screaming at each other. And anything you wanted to put on there, you should plan on it being printed in the ledger, right in bold type.
yeah,
Basically, it's like posting on a bulletin board.
yeah. I like the idea of it, I just don't wanna, I don't think we should go there right now.
No, I think it's something we should hold in abeyance for
Mhm.
now, but, you know, basically what we need to do for our emails is communicate, documents. Jim still has to act as central processing. He can send out documents, you can send out documents, I can send out documents, but there can be no reply other than acknowledgement of receipt.
Mhm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with, for example, I get something, you know, like, I mean, I sent out this bulletin,
Yeah,
right? I didn't send it out to create a thread with, everybody just reply all and have it creating a thread. I sent it out just so you don't know it.
Right.
Okay? But the idea being that we could at least briefly, we can't do anything about it, but at least we could briefly discuss it here and get it on the record. I think your idea is clever, but I don't think it meets the absolute letter of the law.
I think it meets the letter of the law, it doesn't
You
meet
have
the
to have
intent
a
and the
quorum
spirit.
present.
Where did you find this?
I was looking through the RSAs, and it did not say, that you ever had to adjourn a meeting. Now, you can always adjourn a meeting, that's automatic in Robert's Rules of Order. But it does not specifically talk about meetings online. Now, we went through a period where we were doing Zoom meetings, and in fact, I go to meetings now down in Massachusetts that are completely Zoom. And I believe Sununu repealed the requirement to Zoom or whatever about whatever he was doing with the Zoom meetings. But that was a way to try to manage the pandemic, but it carries over in terms of what if we elected 3 selectmen, none of whom could leave their homes? How do you hold a meeting?
You don't.
Well, that's true.
It's
because
simple as that, you don't.
You do, because you have to start the meeting as a quorum. But say we had 2 selectmen and another one wanted to call in, we accept them into the meeting via telephone.
If you have 2 selectmen here.
Right.
And the third one wants to call in,
Right, so,
as long as everybody in the room can hear what that person is saying,
yeah, that's true.
and that person can hear everybody,
But what I'm saying is.
then the board can decide whether or not to let them.
That's true. But once, say we started the meeting with all 3 selectmen present, and then we all walked out of the room. Do we
All right.
still have a meeting going?
So it's
I
an
don't
interesting
think so.
I think
conversation,
you do.
but I kind of want to nip it in the bud here and not go on and on
I don't
about
know.
it. So like what it gets down to is when Jim or Susan or anybody sends information to all of us, you know, aside from saying received, just try to keep all input and like from writing a book, like back about it with a lot of different questions. And if you have pointed questions, just you can ask Susan or Jim directly, but
Yeah.
then not to get us
Yeah, I
into it.
understand.
And then even those communications should be brought,
Yeah.
like the information that you gain from it, then we can discuss it all together on Tuesday evening.
Basically, what we have to do is stop having conversations online.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Unless you wanna talk about the weather. I mean, yeah,
I just look out the window.
anyway, you can look
No.
at the.
But I don't
So-
think that we're really having conversations online.
Well, no, there's that one email that started
It was
to
on the
go there.
insurance.
Yeah. So that's why
And
I asked it to be
because
stopped.
You asked a question and I responded to it, it started a conversation.
Who asked the question?
I think you did.
Oh, no, I just gave my observation.
Well, it.
But in
came out-
any case,
Irregardless.
irregardless.
I don't care
the
how we
chairman
got
has
there.
asked that
I
this
shut it.
be
We shut it
dropped.
down. Yeah,
Yes.
we're not.
Regardless is not a word.
Well, that's yet to be undetermined.
I use it all the time, but that's.
I like it.
Okay.
Motion to move to
Okay.
the next topic.
Yeah. We're. Did you bring that email though, Jim? So
Yeah.
that Susan can enter it into the minutes, or keep it with the minutes.
Yeah. And it should probably be published in minutes. I don't know, just PDF it and attach it or something, I don't know.
And I'll keep the hard copy in the book.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And, wait a minute, here,
I say it should
you
be
should have this one here.
a
too.
bit
This
more
is-
than that.
It was a fairly extensive thread,
Yeah,
Oh, this was
We
the
have the
email
whole
thread?
thing.
yeah.
okay. There you go.
Thank you.
That's the one from you, and then your reply, okay.
All right.
Okay. Moving right along here.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because if anyone's hearing this and they wanna know what took place on the email,
Okay,
I'll be right there with the.
Throw 'em right
notes.
in. Yep.
I like
I-
that.
I passed this
Trying.
out, I emailed this out to everybody, and it's from the New Hampshire, it's a legislative bulletin, okay? Their legislative bulletins usually pertain to state legislation. This one pertains to the Freedom to Vote Act, which is basically the way New Hampshire towns and cities are structured, is impossible to implement. You have to have early voting in all federal elections, including primaries, for at least 15 consecutive days leading up to the election day and at least 10 hours of each day during that period. You will lose your supervisor, the checklist, you'll lose your moderator, and the clerk will revolt, okay? I mean, literally.
So is this, cause this
This is
started
passed-
last year,
It's passed the House of Representatives, it's on its way to the Senate.
okay,
And I would submit that I think the board should draft a letter to Hassan and Shaheen asking them to get rid of this for New Hampshire anyway. I mean, we don't have the problems, this thing goes into explaining it a little bit. We don't have people driving 20, 30 miles to go vote.
No, I mean, you know,
We just don't have it. I mean,
Yeah.
you come down to the school, we can't tie the school up, where are we gonna do this?
well, no, that's what it came down, it seemed like it was, ludicrous and insane when we discussed it last year, and I can't even believe it's still going, cause it's
Why is
just,
it still going?
It's a different name.
It's
it's a-
halfway there.
This is
The
a different
Freedom to Vote
bill.
Act.
it's a different,
It's a
so
different
they
bill.
changed it up
I
and,
mean, maybe if you were in the wilds of North Dakota or something where you're generally living on a farm or a ranch.
Oh, they don't need this either, cause they have a way of getting to wherever they wanna go. You know, and does this make life better for somebody in an densely populated urban area? I have no idea.
I don't know why. I mean,
And then it also gets into, we would have to do all kinds of mailings and things like that, we'd be mailing out ballots and.
well, yeah, well, even just the requirements on our elected volunteers.
yeah, well,
Yeah, because it kinda, you know, we do have to work in order to even, you know, be here.
yeah, I
You know,
mean,
like for the-
I could see it where, you were standing in line for 2 or 3 hours to try to vote.
you know.
I mean,
There-
I would probably give up after 30 minutes, really.
It's once a
because-
year.
Yeah, but still, I do wanna sit out there and maybe it's raining, maybe it's you know, cold or sleet in March. You know, March is inclement weather generally. And if you had to stand outside for 3 hours waiting to get to the ballot box, wouldn't you be a little miffed?
Maybe, but it depends how much you care about the issues.
Well, I mean-
People had to do that here to get their registrations.
Well, I
Last
understand
year.
that.
Yeah,
So,
But I'm just saying that seems an inordinate amount of time.
well,
But
yeah, it is.
what we do
No
here in
question.
New Ipswich, I doubt it, anytime I've gone to the polls, I doubt if there've been 6 people in front of me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I would surmise that if they try to implement this here, the only way you can make it work would be to call out the National Guard and have them run their polls, because
Yeah.
people aren't gonna do it.
But I mean.
You know, we don't have the people to do it, and they mentioned here, they list of towns that use colleges.
Yeah.
The colleges aren't gonna give them a month.
No, I mean, a reasonable amount of time is fine to stand in line. But an unreasonable amount of time is not, and that happens to be the problem with a lot of the cities, is they'll have, you know, one open polling area in a precinct, and they'll have to run 100,000 people through it. And that makes it extremely.
so this teamed up with what we were chatting about, you know, just before the meeting. And how that comment of having the National Guard have to run the polls all spells, it all seems to line up, like, into a general, like, direction that the country's going in.
Oh, yes.
It's
I-
not good.
No,
I think it's
I-
terrible.
the
And
problem
like
is-
this thing ends here. All Democrats in the US Senate are supporting the Freedom to Vote Act. So it has the votes, just barely, to pass the Senate. The one thing stopping it is the prospect of a Republican filibuster. Now, that appears fragile. All senators are willing to eliminate the filibuster, only 2, one from West Virginia and one from Arizona, are resistant. So our senators are not only supporting this, but they want to eliminate the filibuster, which is the only thing that would keep it.
Our senators are promoting this, and I think,
Yeah.
there's a link on here, can't click on the paper, but if you want, I'd be more than willing to send a polite email to Shaheen and Hassan, pointing out that this can't work. I'm sure they already know about this. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm sure the municipal association.
Well, it's not so much the direction that we're going, it's the pulling in opposite directions. I mean, I read a poll the other day that 56% of all Republicans would like to secede from the Union, and 42% of Democrats would like to secede as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're looking
that-
at a half and half.
You're looking almost at a half and half, people pulling in totally opposite directions, and all of them believing the country's heading in the wrong direction, period.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter which side you're on, everybody says, no, this can't possibly work.
You know, I read an interesting essay the other day that said, the reason why this is happening, and of course, everybody has a reason why it's happening, right? But it kind of made sense. And they said, is because the bureaucracies are now running the government, and the politicians are nothing but temporary figures who the bureaucracies learn to deal with. And when the bureaucracies run the government, there's no constitution holding them accountable. And when we lose the Constitution, what do we have that binds us? And that's what that poll is reflecting.
Well, I
That's
mean,
what it's reflecting
but-
right there, half and half.
But the truth is, okay, whether you look at it from a federal government level or even a local level, it's not the Board of Selectmen who really runs the town. It's the people who actually manage the jobs, like the town clerk, the highway department superintendent, the police chief, and so forth. They are in the trenches every day, getting down and dirty, and they actually manage the town. We provide overall direction, but they have to make it work.
But I don't think the bureaucracy here in this building resembles anything compared to what's in Washington,
Or in the state even.
or even the state, yeah.
But it does bring to mind, when I think of the New Ipswich history book, historically, the Board of Selectmen were very active in what was happening in the state. And not only that, you can read in there, they had a correspondence with Thomas Jefferson after the war, was it the War of 1812,
Be about right.
Mm-hmm.
where they were complaining to him. And he wrote back. And he basically told them, well, too bad. But nevertheless, yeah, and it really made me think when I received that email, because Bob brought this to our attention at the beginning of the year with, I think, was it HB1 at that time?
Yeah,
And I don't believe we ever did anything with it. And I wonder,
well, I mean, how much,
are we supposed to? Is
uh,
it our duty to do what we can, or
Do we
how many
need-
fires do we wanna fight?
well, the other thing, you know, is that we are not really supposed to be a partisan board. You know, it doesn't matter, which way you register, whether it's with an R or a D, you know, with the town clerk. We're supposed to do pretty much what's best for the town.
Yeah.
Whether politics of this magnitude should enter it, I don't know, or if we actually have any true influence to make anybody change their vote.
That is,
The only influence that I think can come here is you got one of the senators up for reelection, quite frankly. And if the whole state realizes that they're voting for something that we can't implement, and they're part of it. I mean, they're voting against their own constituents, you know, in big time, okay? This whole thing goes beyond reasonable politics and reasonable policies of being a little to the left or a little to the right. This is, in my mind, this is totally nuts for us.
Well, it's impossible to execute well.
Mm-hmm.
and that, back to your comment of partisan, I was surprised that NHMA had that last few paragraphs there,
Yeah,
and they just called it just. I
The
wasn't.
creative-
I wasn't writing my own, reading my own editorial. That was off of that page. But I think it does show the state of the nation.
Split right down the middle.
Well, it's not, yeah, I don't even know if it's, I don't think the general public understands what they're doing to themselves and where this is gonna go, because it's unprecedented waters, like tripping right into socialism essentially, you know?
Not tripping, diving headlong
Yeah, well,
at a breakneck
the
pace right now.
policymakers are diving, you know, but
Well,
the public is tripping along, and, cause it feels good, just print money endlessly, keep giving it out, you know, nobody has to work, they can just sit home and wait, and they still get their
some of the new
TVs
inkjet
and.
printers are pretty good, I could start printing my own too.
By
I
the
don't
way,
think
Jim,
it's
this
gonna- I don't
is
think it's gonna work
televised.
well. What?
Well, the truth
This is being broadcast. This
I know
meeting.
that any democracy is doomed to failure eventually, and it will devolve eventually into tyranny, and it doesn't matter which side it comes from.
What do you base that on? This is a unique experiment in human history
It
because
is.
it's not a democracy.
And
It's
it is on the process of, or in the
It's
process-
heading towards that.
It's failed. at the
Because
moment.
it's losing its republic side, and it's going, because
I-
if you look at the communist countries of today, they all call themselves democracies.
Oh,
If you go on the Communist Party of America website, it's all about democracy, but the thing that the founding fathers saw is democracy means mob rule, and mob rule is,
It's not the rule of
tyranny.
law. That's not the rule of law.
yeah, it's,
That's basically
there's a whole,
French Revolution.
there's
Guillotine.
many levels to this.
The attempted rule by an educated populace. Not everybody had a PhD, but I mean,
Mhm.
the population was educated, they could read, they could write, they could understand.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've gone on enough
We're going
philosophical
further.
wanderings. So
Okay.
Can we move to
Do
the
Do
next
we,
topic?
do we wanna?
Well,
turn
I was
this
gonna
to-
ask if, you know, if you'd be interested in writing a letter, Jason.
Well, Jim has,
Oh,
Well,
well,
all of you could,
Yeah.
cause I sent this I forwarded this to you. If you still got it,
Yeah,
you
I
could,
still-
just click on and just use the email format.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I have written to both of them, and I'm pretty sure it comes back to what Bert says. Not sure how much influence there is.
oh,
I think if it,
We
if
can
it
end
came on a town letterhead,
cause we can, and then we
in
can.
my opinion, it would have a lot more
Well, that's what I mean,
effect.
like in the
If there was
drafting
one
of it.
drafted up, like we sign here with 3 selectmen signing
Mhm.
signatures on it, that would
Question
be,
is, when is this up for vote?
that's on the link on that thing.
I didn't read the whole, I just perused it very fast.
I didn't get to see it at all yet.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. Just,
Sometimes I can do day of stuff and most of the time I can't.
just, be warned, Sean, if you start looking into what's going on at this federal and this state level,
Well,
even,
no,
it's brutal,
oh, yeah,
it's brutal.
yeah. So, and in our response
I don't think it
last
says
time-
exactly when this thing is gonna be up for a vote.
Well, if it passed the House, you know, the Senate still has a couple big issues on their agenda right now that they have not resolved, so it could be another 2 or 3 weeks anyway, maybe longer.
So, Jim, could you draft something up for 3 signatures?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll address it to the 2 senators.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
send a separate copy to each.
See, they're also asking us to write to the reps, so I don't know where this
Okay,
thing is at currently.
if it's, one might, the letter to the senators might be asking them to reconsider their support for this because of it's just impossible, okay, it's
Can't be
ludicrous.
executed.
Yeah.
And then we could send one to the rep expressing our dismay of how anybody in their right mind could ever vote for this thing. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but I just,
That's
this
nice.
isn't a question of how much to spend for this or that or something like that. This is crazy. I mean, because it can't be done.
We
with
kind of
our
laughed at it
resources.
at the beginning of the year, and I don't know if it's a laughing matter anymore since it's just they're trying to repackage it, and now it has support, and
Yeah.
I don't know how we would carry it out.
Okay, let me do this. I'll put together letters
Yeah.
and then we can finalize it next week, but I'll send out a letter to
And
the two senators and be an identical
and
letter.
if our moderator, Mr. Romer, would like to sign on to it,
Right,
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah,
glad to
that'd
have
be
him
okay
sign
as
on,
well, if he's willing, if not.
because he had expressed concern over this.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so far out that we sit here and laugh about it. I mean, there's lots of things but it's serious.
Yeah,
But when I first saw this thing, I said, I was in total disbelief.
Well, you know, it's like, I think we should have universal voting laws throughout the United States. They should be universal and doable.
Well, I could even argue that, in that we are a bunch of independent states, and if you study the history of it, the states choose their delegates, unless we're gonna meld ourselves into one big.
No, but I mean, at the federal level, it should be universal. Okay, the states can manage their own internal affairs however they see fit.
There's a lot of debate. We could go all night on
different-
this one, Bert.
Different states, though, have different ways of selecting.
I know.
But this would be something we could discuss outside of a meeting.
Yeah.
And it would be perfectly
That's right,
legal.
perfectly good.
on a chat forum.
In a chat room.
What do you call it? Or
Yeah,
a
no,
blog?
no.
Face to face is the only way to have a true discussion. There's these
With a ring,
other things are. What was that?
a ring and some ropes.
There you go.
Okay, I have,
So that was in August, wasn't it? August 24th, House passes. No, that's a John Lewis. I don't know what that is.
Alright.
Yeah, it was August 24th, the House passed it.
Quite a
Uh,
while ago.
There was a Bob also had something for us as far as ARPA.
okay,
Money.
what I wanted, I got a proposal from Bob Romerl for funding for ARPA. I got it in the file, and I know I have it here. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, yeah, right here.
And do you have an ARPA file going?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we still have not received guidance to the best of my
no, we haven't
knowledge,
gotten a lot of guidance on it.
as to what we can actually spend the money on.
Okay.
So I think we're making it up as we go.
Literally. And this is what he's looking for there are a bunch of tools to speed up the process. He was looking for a laptop and a few other things. I mean,
Does
it's
he-
not a monster wish list
Yeah,
by
but does he
any,
have a price tag on it?
No, he does.
Yeah.
He does.
he does,
And they had already started
yeah,
making steps towards like in this direction
yeah.
back in
So
April.
that's in the file with what people have
Yeah.
given me. If people are giving you guys anything, we can put them all together. But I'd like to make a comment about grants. Not too long ago, they had floods in Cheshire County. And FEMA came in, it was declared a disaster in some areas. That opened the door for FEMA to assist some of the towns in the cleanup. But it also opened the entire state for a period of time for emergency management grants. And those grants are to, the key is, you're gonna invest money to fix something. You have to show that you're gonna save at least that much or more in dollars and in human misery I did one of these with a bridge. I showed that if I didn't replace the structure that was there, I could flood 40 houses at the first floor level up to about a foot or two. And I could have, in a certain level. And so I got the bridge, and now the water goes under. That took a lot of effort, but I had the time at the time to do it. But I'm looking at this, do we have something that we could do? So I'm gonna get ahold of the fire chief, who's now back, and the emergency management director.
Mhm.
Could we, for example, get an emergency management grant to improve our emergency management facility? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know we should at least look at it. The other thing too is that when Trump was president, New Hampshire was declared a disaster area for COVID. And it's still open for some kinds of applications
You mean through FEMA?
through FEMA.
No kidding.
I mean, I didn't realize, I hadn't even thought of that. And I knew Cheshire County was declared a disaster area. And, I didn't think of us until I read this thing that says, oh, the whole state can apply for the grant. We can't apply for money to reimburse us for the same storm because our county didn't get hit as bad. So, these are the kinds of things that just come flying at you, and so, with your permission, I'll go after the fire, to me, the fire department and emergency management are the two that might be able to come up with something.
Yeah.
I mentioned it to Peter, but Peter came back and said, we didn't have any floods, and he didn't realize I was trying to say, you didn't have to have any floods.
Yeah.
But it was flood relief.
But it was because of floods in Cheshire County, they opened up the whole state for grant applications. So they asked me to make sense
This
of
free
it.
money thing is just out of control.
Well, I feel like we said okay to one thing, and now it's
Well,
just
it was conditional.
yeah.
It was conditional.
But
and
here's the
it's
whole
like,
program for the FEMA from Cheshire County.
ARPA is for COVID,
Somebody-
and we're looking at doing culverts and firefighter turnout gear, boating,
Machines, yeah.
boating
Loading equipment.
equipment. It just seems so disingenuous, but everybody's doing it. And so I guess you just keep going till the thing is sucked dry, and then I don't know, it's a real hard.
Well, I did have one question too, cause you had brought up the CARES Act money as well. And I didn't know if you had a chance to get any additional information on what the state was proposing to you,
I
or?
tried looking it up once and I went around in a circle and they went back to budgets.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, is there something there?
So I have mixed emotions on on this subject, because there's a certain degree, like, are we responsible to seek out this money, which, if the system was working correctly, we've paid a percentage of this money in already, and it's just, there would be it'd be surplus money that they're looking to disperse back in different ways. We're not in that scenario. They're using credit, like credit money, and then asking people do you want some of this credit, like fake dollars. And I don't, like, on the one hand, if it was real dollars, like, you feel responsible that you should bring that back to your community as a politician, like, that's what we're charged to do, like, is to fight for our piece of the pie. But now that it's like, it's a fake pie that I don't really want any of, but everybody else is doing it, like you said, do we just charge forward with the rest of the crowd and say gimme, 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 all of the, and just eat up all the credit until
I think that's
whatever
the idea.
happens?
That's the idea.
It's a
So
scam.
it's basically we all rush in and stab until it's dead.
We're feeding at the trough until it's empty, and then we're all fat, but there's no more food anywhere to be found.
What does that mean, Bert?
That means that eventually, the federal government's gonna run out of money. They won't be able to tax us anymore because there's been nothing to tax.
So you're saying it really is free money?
No, it is,
Biden says
it is
$1
dis-
trillion equals $0.
it is basically, we spend ourselves into oblivion. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and these sentences, I understand. Does New Hampshire exist at that point? When it's oblivion?
It'll exist in small enclaves.
So, these are the kind,
Yeah, but that's down the road.
but them are inevitable conclusions that you, if you think about it at all, them are the inevitable conclusions. And so then the question then comes back, as you step back, you say, do I wanna be a participant in this?
It's like being a participant in trying to slow down climate change. We only can make a small contribution to it.
Why'd you pick that topic, Bert?
Oh, it's one of my
Don't pick
favorites.
that topic,
That's
pick
one of
a
my
different
favorites.
one.
That's one of my favorites.
We'll have to do it after the meeting.
You've been around all evening.
Oh, yeah.
But we can take a stand and say, no, we will not accept these funds for, you know, philosophical reasons.
Matters of conscience.
Matters of conscience, if you will.
Okay.
And we're doing our, the residents a disservice by not accepting these funds here and now.
Depends which residents you're talking
Oh,
about.
no, in general.
Well, because there are some that come and say, take all the money you can
Oh,
get
yeah.
while you get
Yeah.
it, and it kind of surprises me because they're of a different motivation in other aspects of things, and
But
like
now
it's
if
the
you look
mixing.
at the
But
resident, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm
but
sorry.
when you throw the pie out there, and it's like, that smells really good, and you're telling me like if I don't go get it now, like it'll be gone.
Yep.
Like it makes you want to run after it, but I don't think, like when you look at the bigger picture, someone needs to say stop. Everybody's
'Cause-
like stop because you're eating poison pie.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that comes to me is, I think one of the big reasons this country did so well was because on most levels of governance, there was always an eye on the future generation. And today, it's what can I get? And when you say that residents being affected, and that's where I say, what about the ones that are only this tall? How does this affect them?
Oh,
Because it feels to me like I'm reaching into the future and pulling money out of their
we
pockets.
are not looking towards the future. Let me rephrase that. The citizenry of the United States does not look to the future right now. They look to instant gratification. What's in it for me? It's why dishonesty is on the rise, accountability is on the decline. Any number of issues that deal with personal ethics.
So then it comes back to the question Sean raises. How good does that pie smell to you? Sean, is this a town of New Ipswich meeting here?
I wish we had more people involved, and I think that's a core issue to all of this. Is just there's not enough.
It is.
Everybody's so busy and wrapped up in what they're doing that they're not involved enough.
If oblivion comes sooner rather than later, there will be nothing else to be busy about.
Correct. And then we'll all just be living, right? Living to live.
Well, you were
Yep.
talking about how a democracy can kill itself earlier. And another way a democracy can kill itself is for the people to constantly keep voting in more and more benefits for themselves, okay? Keep voting for the people that are gonna keep giving them stuff, okay?
Yep.
To the point where the whole thing implodes.
Well, yeah, Roman bread and circus. That's basically what we've got.
Yeah.
Next assignment, read Atlas Shrugged.
Alright, so I guess we'll put that request into that file, Jim,
Hmm?
for the ARPA money, like from,
Yeah.
Bob.
Right, right. And that's the
And-
one we have going right now. I mean, I will take a look and see if we could possibly do something with the, let's say, the Emergency Management Center to get some money to make that, and to improve that
Yeah.
if there's anything there at all. And maybe I can get the fire department, emergency management to help.
Jim, have we actually received the money? Have we got it into our bank accounts?
Well, no, this is something different.
No, but the
Yeah.
ARPA money.
We got half of it,
Yeah, we got $260,000 or so.
something like that.
Okay.
Is it earmarked and put separate somewhere,
It's in, we have one account, okay, but in the accounting system, it's set aside.
Okay, so we do have it in hand.
Yeah,
All right, that's what I wanted to make sure of. In that case, we ought to start approving some of these expenditures,
Or not.
or not.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
okay.
I don't wanna go down the tunnel. I would like certain
Let's do it.
guidelines, and I'm not gonna get whipped back into, or being pushed into a scenario where we have to reverse course from free choice, which we've chosen, as leadership for this town, and people to do as they please and see fit for themselves, and have a bigger body of government then have control over us and say, since you took this funding, then you believe in these thoughts and you will execute X, Y, Z.
I don't see how the two connect.
or? I
The
do.
fire department boiler installation has begun. I think
Okay.
they actually got the boiler sitting over there now, connecting it up. And just for the record, that the Primex will do the boiler inspections, arrange for them. We have to have state boiler inspections. We're putting in 2 new boilers, and our insurance carrier does provide a state licensed certified boiler inspector,
Okay.
so,
Well,
as part of our insurance.
I will agree that we do need to see the final guidance on this thing. But once we have that final guidance, we need to start committing these funds.
No, yeah, I agree, but I don't wanna,
We did vote
jump in.
that we wanna know what's what
Mhm.
before we spend it. That was the only way that I voted in affirmative for that.
Yeah, I
because
recall you, Kevin, yeah.
And I think, yeah, it remains to be seen.
Okay.
We don't know.
And as far as spending too much time chasing other money, cause you had said that it was large hurdles, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Like what was your proposed solution to the grant writer aspect? I know that, with the previous administrator, he had made the point at one point that even though they are expensive, cause there are people that write grants specifically.
Right.
You can
genuine-
hire them.
Oh, yeah, it's tens of thousands of dollars, but they're going after millions, so they're
yeah.
going after hundreds of thousands.
And then you can do things, we could like contact the regional planning commission. Municipal associations trying to give out pass on some guidance for ARPA. Regional planning commissions sometimes act as grant agents for, some of the various, a master plan, well, that's not a grant, but, some of the other stuff is grant, like, emergency plans and things like that. Before we go to the end here, I got one last item I would like to bring up. That's germane. Okay, credit cards.
So, well, on the grant writing though, like,
Okay.
is there something that you just wanted to be able to talk to the police or the fire
I
chief?
just wanna, I
and-
wanna go to the fire chief. There's things that I can do, but at the same time, I'm trying to put a budget together for you.
No, I know, that's
In
why,
my-
that's why I'm trying to,
in-
help close this one out, cause we kinda left it 3/4 again.
Right, but let me go to the emergency management director and
Mm.
the fire chief,
Yeah,
and see if there isn't something there that we could, a few phone calls to see if something's doable. If it's doable, then we can make it work.
okay,
That to me is the first piece. Do I have an idea that's doable and does it make sense?
Okay.
And if that's the case, then it's worth putting the effort into. But just so you know, from my perspective, okay, you know, I'm coming here on a temporary basis to try and help out, bridge, you know, a span here.
Mm-hmm.
I came here for two things. One is get the audit, get the tax rate.
Yep.
And the other is get the budget put together. To me, that's at the core of it.
Yep.
But there's a lot of other stuff sitting around it, okay?
Yeah.
And it's all important.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we're on track with the audit, and we're on track with getting the tax rate on time. Or if it's not on time, it really isn't our fault, okay? And we're tracking other people too.
When you
So-
say it's not our fault,
If, for example, the Department of Education doesn't release something involving the school and the school can't turn in their final
so it's
report.
beyond us
It's beyond us.
completely. Okay.
Right,
Alright.
when I say beyond us, not just the board, beyond the town and anybody with anything to do with town government. Debbie's got, all her stuff is in, your stuff is all in, the assessor's stuff is all in, it's all there,
Okay.
just waiting to do the final tweak and go.
Perfect.
One of the things I noticed in going through and doing a budget, I think is very important for a town administrator in a town of this size. I mean, if you have a full-blown city, the city manager isn't gonna sit there with debits and credits, they're gonna be reading reports, it's different. But in going through and looking at the accounts, I spotted one in the selectmen's part of the budget, which is budgeted for $3,000 and is for some kind of supplies or something, material. I forget the exact amount. But we spent over $16,000 on it. Oh? It's the credit card. So when the credit card bill comes in, and Roger doesn't have all the slips to match up to the bill, he's gotta put it somewhere, because he's gotta pay the credit card company.
Mm-hmm.
So I got $16,000 sitting here, of which maybe 12 or 14 or 15 doesn't belong there. And of course, and speaking to him, it's, well, we can give it to the auditors and let them sort it out. I don't wanna have to do that. And so, I'm looking at this credit card system, and it doesn't seem to be working very well. It works well in that a department head or somebody in a particular group, oh, I've gotta go get this, so I'll use the town's credit card. Well, what's coming back, I mean, Roger gets the bills with all the itemized stuff on it, but what he's also looking for is the slip. Well, if you pick up the phone and you order something over the phone, you may not get the slip. So, and I'm not sure, you know, I just started looking at this thing, and it's kind of a, you know, it's ugly. And I don't think I have no reason to suspect anybody stealing or doing anything that's, you know, dishonest or anything like that. It's just, it's not really as accountable as it should be. So, unless you have some objection, I was going to look into the credit card, how the credit card works. And I did find out, to my great surprise, that the municipal, not the bond bank, the public deposit, New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool, besides being a public deposit investment pool, has a credit card setup designed for towns. So, I'm just gonna you know, I'll take a little time and take a look at that, and if I think there's anything in there that would make it easier for us to function or operate, then I'll come back to you with a presentation or something, you know.
One thought on that, Jim, is, I do a little bit of business, you know, via credit cards, but I do a lot of it over the internet, and they will give you a receipt for
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And sometimes you can find a really good price, on a website and stuff, and you get the credit card and the you know, code, and, you know, it's a good way to do business, cause it leaves a good audit trail.
I'm not against the credit card.
Yeah,
What I have the problem with is putting the pieces together at the end of the month.
well, I mean,
That is,
All it seems like it needs is almost like at Home Depot, you can put a PO
yeah.
number. If each person could, when they make this purchase, they determine.
well, I mean, we have a town credit
I don't know if
card.
that's possible.
Would it be worthwhile to have individual department credit cards, so each department has their own?
And it all goes on their budget?
And it all ends up in their budget because it's only listed at that credit card?
That
Yeah.
seems like that would be the
something like that.
clearest
Yeah.
solution.
So I guess what I'm saying is I wanna take a look at this and, you know, come up with some ideas to make it easier at the end of the month when Roger gets it,
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, you know, maybe it's not good to have that many credit cards flying around, but it does provide a certain accountability.
Well,
The
trackability
it's
is-
specific to the department head.
Correct.
So they are responsible for that, and I think that it would, you know, just an initial conversation would be better that it was connected directly to their budget only somehow, but that's not how we operate, like everything's one pool of money,
Yeah.
you know, so they'd have to set up multiple accounts.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I mean,
Well, we can do something with it. All I'm trying to say is, I'm looking at something that shouldn't go for several months on end, sitting around $16,000 and fluctuating a little bit, okay?
And
Yeah.
and really, there is a set dollar amount that up to that dollar amount, the department doesn't have to come and ask for authorization, but then beyond that, they do. So if each one just had that amount like attached to their card, cause there's all sorts of controls that you put on these things these
yeah,
days.
I mean, I'm thinking.
And it doesn't get replenished until Roger gets the paperwork that he needs, right?
I mean, a credit card is designed for small purchases, not, I'm gonna go out and buy a truck,
Mm.
okay? Or a big engine part or something like that. That should be by purchase order. And it should be a very specific piece of writing, a write-up, an invoice and back and forth. I mean, we're talking $8,000 for a car or a truck engine, or something along that line. That shouldn't go on a credit card, that should be something separate. A credit card is designed for, you get under Staples, you buy some cartridges, or you buy some paper, or something like that, you buy some oil filters.
that was in the 50s, Bert. Today, people use them to buy houses.
I know,
I
I know,
tried to
it's
buy a car.
terrifying.
I tried to
That's
buy
a lot of
car with
points.
it. I
You
tried
want
to
your
buy a
freaking
car with
fly
American
miles, that's
Express
all.
and they wouldn't take it,
Yeah, I've had that.
because I wanted the points. I wanted
That's
to buy
right.
a
You
car.
can get cash back on there
Oh,
like
but
crazy.
you're talking about Staples.
Yeah,
But Susan, you order from Staples, they send us a bill, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And Roger will give me the statement and
You know-
I give him the invoices.
You know, in most small towns that I've worked in, one person orders from like Staples and WB Mason and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. And everybody else goes to that person, hey, I need this, I need that. Once a week, they dump an order in
Well,
and
that's
off we
fine,
go.
if you have a central, person. But, you know, the highway department goes down to, Joe's Auto Parts and buys
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
a couple of filters or a case of oil or whatever, and they put it on the credit card, and that's fine. But if it's a town credit card, then there's a problem because they don't know whether that's for the police department or for the highway department or for the fire department.
Well, from what I understand, I think police has their own, DPW has their own, there's a couple departments that have
They may
their
all be,
own.
they may have their own card, but with the same number.
Yeah, and it goes
That's the
through,
problem,
yeah.
same
Yeah.
one.
and then
So let me
well,
put-
and then there's, yeah, so that they still have trouble tracking it.
Yeah.
And that like, he has to go and ask everybody, hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do that?
Yeah.
Or, it, I guess, this is the first I'm hearing it, it just gets dumped into our
So
Zone.
give everybody
So I don't know if this has
their
always
own
been the
independent,
practice, but-
individually numbered card, and then we have good tracking.
Mhm.
Actually, at the end of the year, I think what I'll do is I'll take whatever is over and divide it up in thirds between the police, the fire, and the highway.
Oh, you want the house?
All right.
Through
No, we'll
Heritage
We'll take a
Commission,
look
too.
at it. The only reason I mention it is to say that it's something that I intend to look at, and I think it needs to be looked at. And I do agree that there are times when, if you know you're gonna buy something, and you can get a good deal with a credit card and get it shipped right away and get it quickly, and you can do it online or over the phone, that can be an advantage. It certainly can be, but, yeah.
Alright, thank
You
you for
can't
looking,
get it
thank you
shipped
for
right
looking
away?
into that.
Huh?
You can't get it shipped right away. In fact, I saw another news item, the post office has made a statement that they will now be taking longer to deliver letters, so.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Another outside in the parking lot discussion, Bert.
And again, looking into banking,
Post office.
Huh?
and looking into banking.
And, oh man, I'll leave this back. I'll yield the floor back to the chair.
Okay,
They're making you uncomfortable.
Oh no.
no, it's,
Getting
you get all
excited
fired
for the
up,
parking
yeah.
lot discussion we're gonna have, Bert.
I know, the town needs a late night coffee shop, right?
Oh, yeah.
Alright,
So I'm done,
that's it?
yeah.
Okay. Jason, do you have anything tonight?
I had one thing we briefly talked. My really pressing issues that I bring up here, Sean.
Yeah,
That perambulation,
yes,
I got a little more story on it, backstory, that it was kind of done as a practical joke to you.
Yeah.
And they told you did you get any information on it? Because I wouldn't mind if you dropped it down onto me. If there's a procedure to go through, I could fill out that kind of paperwork.
yeah,
If there is paperwork or whatever that needs to be
It's
done.
more where you're supposed to view the boundary lines.
Right, I understand the
for
principle
For
of
that,
that,
but there is no paperwork
Well,
trail
what did you?
for it.
Well,
Because
there
the
is.
selectmen got.
It hasn't been done by most of the selectmen.
No,
Right,
but you file a return with
Mm.
the clerk,
Yeah,
and the return comes from both towns. You have to do it with the other town.
so I don't
So it
know,
needs
so
to
when
be
that
in
came through from
conjunction.
the
So that
Census
becomes a
Bureau.
paperwork trail,
Oh,
a
okay.
return.
Well, so that paperwork that we did get that year, you know, it didn't, I don't know what happened to it. Like, I think
Oh.
Scott was supposed to file back with the Census Bureau or whatever, but we never heard anything back about it. and-
Census Bureau?
Or, I think that's what it came from was,
Well, the Census Bureau has nothing to do, perambulation's a New Hampshire law.
well, no, yeah, but it came as a part of like a
The Census
census
Bureau asks
packet.
you every year,
Yeah,
did you add or lose any territory? Because in many places, towns grow, they shrink, and the boundaries change and everything
so,
else.
so we were talking about the paper trail, and I don't know where, cause that came up. I don't recollect anyone signing anything on it or
The clerk's
anything.
Sounds
office
to
should
me-
have the paper trail.
So
So,
I just need to
Jason,
come down here
please,
someday when
can
I'm
you look
supposed to
into
be
that?
working
Yeah.
and.
cause I'm interested in it,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's,
I
you
mean,
know,
I
mild
need to.
interest,
I-
yeah.
I would really look not at the boundary itself, but the corners.
The corners.
The corner, I think we have 4 corners for the town, and I think one of them has been lost.
So,
If we had this,
And
GIS
it
mapping,
might
we
be
could just-
worthwhile just going out there and observing the corners.
well, this should be done in conjunction with whatever town is bordering that.
Well, you'd have probably 4 towns all coming out together and.
We got 1, 2,
And there's also a procedure for how to deal with a border town over the state, too.
so, Jason,
Oh, wow.
please, you asked,
Alright.
it's on your plate,
I get in the side.
yeah.
I'm gonna come visit you.
See me,
I'm gonna come
Yeah.
visit.
I've done it,
Oop,
Yeah.
I've done it.
how does that work?
And just for your information, Bob Boynton has the longitude, latitude coordinates of all 4 corners.
Ooh, good information. Bob Boynton.
I imagine the state of New Hampshire has it too.
They're
I wonder if
they're
they'll be
tougher
the
to
same.
reach.
Huh?
They're tougher to reach. Bob is.
Well, I wouldn't bet on that. Depends who's calling.
You should be able to get it right off that map, for that matter.
Yep,
But if we need to, I can look at that. All right. And
Awesome.
then the only other thing I had, I was curious if there was any thing come up. Were you able to find any towns who have used that artificial intelligence.
Yes, I do have that. I'll pull it together, I'll send it out. I have the count of how many people, use our website as well and what sites, so I'll kind of like make a one-sheeter.
Okay.
All right, that'd be cool. I actually looked for reviews on that and I didn't find any, either way.
They said that they're fairly new.
Okay.
They do have sites all over the country.
That was all I had.
I am gonna follow up with Secret Fix. I think it integrates with our website as well.
Which,
Secret Fix is offered by our website people,
oh, I don't know.
and
what that
Text My
is.
Gov is offered by the iWorks people.
Oh, I see. So they're similar AI programs.
I haven't really looked into the Secret
no.
Fix one. I think it's just so interactive.
Hmm.
We'll see.
I don't like artificial flavoring. I wonder if I would like artificial intelligence.
When she was, when,
All right.
that was
yeah.
kind of, a little bit.
Okay.
Bert?
Don't have much. The only thing I had that was kind of a quasi thing is you gave me a couple weeks ago that punch list, action punch list thing.
Yep.
And we haven't really gone through it in about 2 or 3 weeks to update it in any way. And I didn't know if we wanted to read through the list or if we wanted to update it in some way or if we want to leave that for another night. Since the night is young.
Young, huh? Yeah, you're a late stay up late guy.
He had his evening cup of coffee before the meeting.
I remember you did bring that up, and I had meant to go through and kind of put notes in it. I hadn't done that yet myself.
All right,
So if we could do that,
next week maybe.
yeah, like we'll do that initially. Well, I'm not gonna be here next week, most likely.
Okay, 2 weeks. It's
Yeah.
not a rush item, it's just
That's budget.
there's probably.
It'll be all right.
There's probably 20 items on here.
Okay.
And I just don't wanna leave anything forgotten on our do list. And if we add it to the do list, maybe we'll get to it eventually, but
Yeah.
if it's in writing, if it's left to memory, it's gonna go fall through the cracks or something.
I know, I'm starting to get a lot of pages to thumb through before our meetings.
Yeah, I mean, and it's easy to miss something because your eyes just bounce off.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Susan, if you could put punch list updates,
Action list review on October 19th.
you got it.
Already there.
All right.
That's it.
Anything else? All right. What else you got? I know you got something.
Surprises
Yeah.
today, Sean. Nothing.
Yeah, I do have one complaint that came in today.
We're not taking complaints yet.
Okay. Well, just so you know.
Yeah,
when-
no.
when it's my turn.
No, no. All right, Susan, what do you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to hear my complaint.
Oh, is it your complaint?
No.
Okay.
So the woman that lives at 15 Temple called and she said that kids are getting into the house at 11 Temple.
Mm.
She's really upset about it. She's afraid somebody's gonna get hurt. Should I just give Mike a walk, ask him to keep an eye on it, maybe?
Yeah, couldn't hurt, at least drive by once a day or something.
Yeah, be conscious that kids might be in there.
Plywood was cheaper.
Yeah.
I'd recommend first floor plywood, screw
That-
it all over the windows.
Yeah, well,
I
Should
tend,
be
I tend to, because it really should have been fenced
well,
off.
yeah.
Cheap plywood,
Yeah.
Cheap.
There is no such
Well-
thing of that anymore.
but they're less expensive.
Well, that also begs the question, we sent that proposal out to,
Is this for non-public?
no,
No.
I don't think so. We sent that proposal out, have we heard back?
No, we've not heard back. The
Could
minute we hear
you-
back,
Could you make an inquiry on
I will.
our behalf?
I will do that.
So,
So,
do you agree that it should be plywooded?
Yeah, it's a traffic nuisance.
Jason, are you of that motivation?
And are you saying that the town asked Mark to go and plywood it up, or what
Or-
are you saying?
the DPW guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the problem is you got
How many
the
windows?
doors wide open, the windows wide open.
Yeah.
I took a peek inside, I didn't wanna go in because I was concerned about the structural stability of the place.
That's what she said, it's her flip-flops on it.
Take the elevator to the basement.
So I think we need to take action on that.
So,
At least, are there no trespassing signs on
It doesn't,
But you're
so from
talking
what I've heard from the
kids.
state, nobody listens to signs, and you have to
And-
do physical
and if you're
things to
talking
create
kids and it's
behaviors.
on
Oh.
Main
yeah, it's
Street,
on Main
and we
Street,
are the
and
current
it's next
property
to a
owners.
baseball
Mhm.
field.
If
and
you
everything.
didn't
Yeah.
own that building,
Absolutely. I
And
make a
somebody else
motion, we,
owned it.
I mean,
I would up the openings
on the first floor and
on the
call it
first
good.
floor.
first floor doors, yeah.
I mean, you know, what it'll cost us, a couple $100 maybe?
Yeah, but
Well,
think of it this way.
a little bit
if
more,
somebody
cause
else owns
you
the
can't
building,
use the
Wouldn't you
OSB,
be ordering
we
it?
have to use CDX,
Why?
like the action,
You would.
cause you
If
can
I
just,
owned the building, you'd
you
tell
could
me
break
get
through
the-
that easily.
No, but kids, I mean, that's a, isn't that?
It's
what-
gonna be, if they're going in there,
Yeah,
they'll,
kids are the most vicious creatures on earth.
yeah, if we're gonna do it, like, it's worth the extra
OSB is
pennies.
pretty rubbish.
Mm,
I'm not gonna micromanage like that. They can use suitable materials to cover all openings. But if you wanna say.
3/4, like, so not half inch or quarter inch, but no, you laugh,
I'd use some half-inch CDX and it'd be fine.
yeah, so either
That's
half inch
like
CDX or
flexible.
Because, well, wait
3/4
a
inch
second,
OSB.
CDX won't stand up to the weather.
But we don't- hopefully we won't need it for
7/16.
long.
I'm telling you this, Sean, they use 7/16 OSB to protect their windows during hurricanes.
Yeah, you know, it's not the,
Your span is very
it's
small.
not the ability of people to damage it. I think it's Mother Nature, weathering it for 2 years, if we happen to hold on to it for that long.
Yeah.
It won't stand up to the weather for
Yep.
an extended period of time.
Oh, it will.
Not
Yeah.
A couple of years. It'll
Yeah.
just totally delaminate.
I have used, I've been in carpentry for a good portion of my life, and OSB is remarkable. It will hold up surprisingly well. I've used, the last time I used CDX plywood, the stuff delaminated. As I was walking on it, the glues came apart and I had 4 pieces of 1/8" plywood. I am not
You must have been
kidding you.
dreaming.
Well, you
That's
know, I
not-
do that occasionally, Sean, so
That doesn't
you might
sound
be right. But I'm gonna say, if it's
All
in the
right,
highway
all right.
department's budget to go with 1 1/8" fir, well, whatever, but I think
Tongue
7/16 OSB is,
Alright,
we're trying to keep our little kids.
We got some people in town with their own big bandsaws, and they saw up trees, we could probably board that thing.
You don't even wanna see what they have out there for,
Alright.
cordless equipment.
so what was your motion
To board up the first floor doors and windows.
of 11?
11 Temple Road,
As appropriate.
as appropriate.
That's good, because they can go get what's the most appropriate that Beltane
Yeah.
has at the moment.
I mean, corrugated roofing, whatever.
And I just-
Jeez.
I'll second that motion.
I'll let-
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'll call the resident that complained and let her know that action is gonna be taken.
Yep.
Thank you.
And yeah, and I like that, that should kinda jump to the front of the list. Cause if someone
we'll do
gets,
it
if
tomorrow.
someone gets hurt in it
No, we do
tomorrow,
We do it tomorrow.
yeah, it's, so. Children getting hurt, I'm not equating children getting hurt to potholes, but it's along that same line since, you know, someone's made us aware of a situation of danger, like we need to act on it right away.
But that one
Yeah,
is
yep.
very
So it's a big
legitimate,
one,
I think.
yep,
Man of action, determination.
yeah,
I feel better.
okay,
The
and yeah,
kids won't get hurt.
Yeah, and especially
You only
now
look
it's
in the
school,
minutes.
kids walking around.
Pass it along.
alright. So, the community center update, waiting to hear back from Shauna, in regards to when they'll be ready to come here, cause I guess there had been some, and I'm speaking third hand, some other discussion between some library trustees with differing opinions on certain things, so they weren't quite settled yet over there. So, she'll come in when they're ready. I already asked about the CARES Act. Oh, and with budgets, I think I had made this request to you over the phone, Jim, but just, so it's logged in the minutes. I'd like to have the Conservation Commission, assessors, and planning board on the same night. Even though those are small budgets, I would like to use that opportunity to get them in here, so we can hash out this GIS tax map debate to some degree and hear from each head.
So they should
All
be,
at once
they should be
in the same
notified that
room.
this will also,
We'll have it on the 19th. I don't have a Conservation Commission budget yet, but
Mhm.
what I've always done with budgets in the past is when people don't return something to me, I make a budget for them. It works very well. And then they come in, and then we finalize the budget. You only gotta have a dozen lines anyway, okay?
Yeah,
They never spend it all.
okay.
The assessor's budget is done,
Mhm.
and it's about $1,500 lower this year than it was last year.
oh, he's
And
setting
the
a good
warrant
example.
article is a couple $100 lower.
Okay. So, sounds like a good plan.
I think that's an
You know-
excellent sneaky way to do it.
Okay.
Just so they're notified, so they come prepared,
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So Jim, you'll handle that and let them know to be prepared to discuss the GIS tax map, and we're gonna get into a bit of conversation, I know, and I'm gonna give like a lot of latitude with that, cause I really wanna get everybody, not convince each person, like, or in a different motivation or a different way, but at least so that we all know where we're coming from, and it's not just being translated to somebody like over the phone, third hand,
so who are the boards that you wanted here?
Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and assessors. And then we'll be here, and so everybody with interest will be here,
Do you want that for next week, or?
the 19th, I think Jim said, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've got some of the planning board budget. I will contact them, and I will contact Mr. Boynton and tell him I need his budget by the end of this week. I mean, he can give it back to me in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
Some budgets are easy.
yeah,
alright.
minimal.
And also, looking to resume Zoom, during the budget process, so that people can log on and at least view what's going on in the discussions that we're having. In the interest of, increasing transparency, because there were some people that, called me and said it looks like you're diminishing transparency, because they can't get to a meeting for one reason or another, and minutes don't always capture everything,
Yeah,
and budgets are, a large part of what we deal with.
yeah. When I went through the budget process, we did have a, budget committee, finance committee, I don't know, an advisory committee on the budget.
Mm.
And, they had a lot of input, but did slow that process down quite a bit. Since
Yeah.
But he has latitude whether or not to call on people and so.
Well, I mean,
You do.
Yeah.
they get,
Mute button's a
at least
wonderful
say,
thing.
what's that?
The mute button, it's a wonderful thing.
Wonderful.
No, well, so I'm hesitant, because again, it's almost like another fire and another thing to coordinate, and it's cumbersome, and I hadn't witnessed the use of a finance advisory committee or a budget committee in a correct fashion, like in my few years of viewing like little bits and pieces of the budget, and then even last year, we did have the budget advisory committee, but whether they showed up or not it didn't matter if one came. Sometimes they weren't even called on or just like asked what their input was on a specific budget, or it just becomes like another coordination aspect of getting all of that paperwork to them ahead of time so that they can have informed intelligent questions to ask.
Didn't they take a vote once in the parking lot?
Yeah, that was the finance advisory committee, yes,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
when it was, yeah, the official board. So what it got knocked down to anyways was, it was advisory at this point,
Yeah,
and they really had no say over,
so we really don't even
Budgets.
have one this year.
no, there were no members, like, for one reason or another, everybody walked away, and I don't know if it was the misuse or underuse of them last year in consideration anyways, it just was kind of a waste of their time, in my opinion.
I mean, I was reading the RSA's and they do have some input on the budget in terms of recommendations, don't they?
Or were you looking at a municipal budget act, or are you looking at an advisory committee?
I think I was looking at the advisory.
Well, obviously, there's no sense in having an advisory committee if you're not gonna listen to their advice.
Right, but they.
I mean, just by
But
definition.
they had some recommendation on a upper number, and I seem to remember the number 10%.
Oh, now you're in municipal budget
Okay,
act.
in municipals.
Okay, Municipal Budget Act prepares a budget. They don't sit with the Board of Selectmen, like, it sort of dwindled down here to, they produce a budget.
Mhm.
They actually produce a budget and give it to the selectmen.
Yeah, so,
They can't tell the selectmen how to spend or transfer once the budget's, once the budget's.
But so then the
approved.
selectmen do nothing in the budget forming process?
we,
They can,
I think we can redline it, but as long
no,
as
the
we.
selectmen can't overrule the budget committee. The budget committee is what goes on the warrant, unless the selectmen have a, you know, petition article or something.
Has there been an attempt to do that in this town?
Yeah, but the problem was the elected budget committee sort of degenerated into something that was less than totally constructive.
Hmm. But wasn't there a 10% limit as to how much over that particular recommended budget?
Town meeting can't vote to exceed by 10%.
Yeah.
Or diminish by more than 10%. I think it's a 10% either way, plus or minus 10%. So you're stuck in a window
Mhm.
So we're not.
with a
facing-
bunch of, and with a whole pile of extra rules.
That's if
Ideally,
you have a budget committee.
If you have a budget
Now,
committee.
the way we have it now, SB2 and what we're going to be doing here, it can
Oh,
go
I-
anywhere it wants. Is that
Oh,
true?
oh, yeah.
It can go wherever it wants.
Right.
So, like, from this point, like, when we're going through our, like, the budget process, in not having, like, an advisory committee, it would behoove us to get as many people involved in the budget as possible, like, community members.
So I agree with you. Open up Zoom.
Do you
For
want me to
that.
start that
Yeah.
next week?
Yeah, if we're
The
talking about-
12th.
Yeah, if
That's
we're
next
talking.
week.
Oh, yeah.
That
No,
is
actually-
Well, today's the 5th.
No,
so-
we're not talking budgets next week, it'll be the 19th.
19th.
The 19th will be the first, yeah,
Yeah, I
sorry.
mean,
I knew it was 1 week.
I think we can make it work.
Yeah.
Just three of us in the TV show. Yeah, why not?
And if you would, Susan, please advertise it as such, you know, that budget season is here.
On Facebook
Um,
and the website.
Mhm. Yeah, and please attend.
Okay, watch the
Yeah.
agendas and there's just gonna.
Yeah, you're welcome in the town office or to Zoom in. We may or may not take comments, but, people can send Jim an email.
Okay.
Jim likes emails.
Or one of us, any one of us.
Compliments are highly recommended.
Yeah, no, complaints only. How can you
Oh,
fix things? It was,
complaints.
yeah, you need complaints to fix.
So do you wanna do the budget stuff at the beginning of the meetings and then everything else later?
I already got somebody scheduled for 5:15 on the 19th, and they put her there to get it out of the way.
Not bud related,
Not budget related.
okay. Alright.
So yeah, I don't know if you wanna do budgets at the end of.
Well, no, we'll just do like Zoom, like from, as long as we're talking about budgets, like probably all the way through to the vote, essentially. We'll have Zoom just open and,
Or just have Zoom open for the whole meeting, don't try and just have
yeah,
it.
that's what
for
I mean,
budget.
like, don't try to just have it for
Yeah.
one segment.
Yeah, no, I mean for the agenda though.
Yeah,
Yep.
But I just, how
Yeah.
to schedule it, but yeah, we'll figure it out later.
I mean, I have some budgets that are, you know, they're almost one-liners.
Peter's non-public, have you heard back?
He's probably gonna be out the week.
Okay, alright.
We got the truck, when I say we got the truck, it's still in there a lot, but,
Well, those two things, I just wanna be clear, have nothing to do with one another. Peter's non-public and the truck,
no, I know,
zero. No, I know, yeah, but
I know.
you brought it
I
up in the
just-
same sentence, yeah, yeah. Alright, okay,
But, no, Peter's out, he's feeling some better, I think, but they still want him to stay out for a bit.
okay. Alright. That's all I had. Yes, we're all good. So we just have, we're gonna finish off the evening, with a non-public to discuss our position in the building number 2 lease. So I'll make a motion to go into non-public under section 91A3, section 2, subsection D.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.